Time for some Rahkshis, guys. This is another episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, and exactly like I said, we're going to talk about some Rahkshi today in episode 169. So, let's just get straight stuck into it, shall we? We're going to get you a little bit of inspiration on how to build some Rahkshi-themed MOCs, and take a look at a few different ways that you could approach one, because I think there's a lot of different takes on how to design a Rahkshi in this episode. A lot of designs that are really kind of pushing the boundaries or finding different ways that you could approach one. So let's go. This first MOC is just simply called Rahkshi, and it's by Sergei Gakari. So this is kind of like a bit of a revamp of the original Lerahk green Rahkshi here. And I love these little subtle additions, these little hints of color, these little additions of orange on the Rahkshi here, whether that's the spikes on the head or these Skrull armor pieces on the thighs as well. There's something really nice about this. I think that's a really great idea of, if you are revamping something, to add a little pop of color like that, even if it's very subtle and it's only in a couple places, because it really helps this MOC pop. I think if you kind of took out that orange, if it was just that sort of silver and green, this MOC would be cool, but it would just kind of be lacking something, just a little small bit of something. And this nice little pop of orange here really just completes this MOC. I don't know what it is, but it's very nice. And so I kind of recommend doing that. If you are revamping a pre-existing character that is a part of the Bionicle lore that was originally a set, or hey, maybe you're revamping one of your own original characters, maybe you could include just a little pop of another color like this, just a subtle little bit, because could actually work quite well. I think this is a lovely example of that, especially if it's maybe some kind of cool concept, like, you know, for example, if you're a Pokemon fan, you got Lucario, and then you got Mega Lucario. Mega Lucario kind of has those little hints of red introduced into his color scheme, and there's a few other little Mega Evolutions that have little subtle things added to the colors or to the general aesthetic and stuff like that. Maybe that's kind of a concept you want to do. Maybe you have a bunch of MOCs that you've made, but then they could have sort of like evolutions or mega evolutions or sort of like alternate form or a different look or feel depending on, I don't know, armor that they've got on or the climate they're in, something like that. And that could simply be shown through little additions of armor and a little pop of color. Who knows? It could work. Again, this kind of fits in with specific concepts or story ideas that you might have with the MOCs that you build, but it's something to at least think about, and it's a cool way of having a bit of meaning behind the colors that you add into your MOCs as well. So, really lovely addition here. Subtle, but it goes a long way, I think. I like, too, the general concept with this sort of pseudo-revamp here. The idea of just adding a little bit more posability to the kind of classic Rahkshi design. There's a lot of things going on here with this design, very similar arms and the same kind of feet, and I'm sure there's a few other things here and there that are essentially just the general original look and feel for the Rahkshi. But, you know, not that they weren't necessarily posable, because they were. They had a good variety of maneuverability. But, is that a word? Maneuverability? I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but I'm sure I'm fine. But still, the idea of doing that with any of the official Bionicle sets is just finding a few subtle ways that you can reimagine it. Just give it a bit more posability or make it look a little bit more lifelike. You know, we take a look specifically at the thighs on this MOC here. They're very rounded, they're very organic. The use of those sort of foot pieces there definitely gives them a bit of a bulge there that looks a little bit more realistic to a typical thigh on a humanoid character. So just, yeah, finding ways that you can do that, making the limbs or the body or any part of the MOC just look more realistic, more lifelike in some fashion. That can be a great way to approach, well, any MOC, really. And this is a lovely example of that. So some nice stuff going on this Rahkshi MOC here. Let's move on to the next one. This is by Mohammed Mari, and it's called Rahkshi Nihrahk Revamp. So again, pretty much the same kind of thing as the last MOC we saw, although this one is actually stating that it is a revamp of Lerahk. And what I like so much about this revamp here is it's kind of essentially a Rahkshi, but without the Rahkshi, for the most part. What I mean when I say that is they've built a Rahkshi MOC that, for the most part, uses, like, no pieces that came on the original Rahkshi sets, bar a couple things, you know? But I love seeing that. I love seeing a Rahkshi design that doesn't actually use the Rahkshi head, because it's a great piece, it really is, but why not branch out? Why not try something different? Can you actually build a Rahkshi that has a different head design, whether it's custom or like this uses like the Scorpio mask that also came in yellow, or I don't know, uses some other kind of Bionicle mask that you think, hey, actually, you know what, that kind of looks a bit like a Rahkshi head, or I'm going to make it look like a Rahkshi head, or you know what, I'm just putting it on my Rahkshi. Even if it doesn't look or fit, that's the mask you want for your Rahkshi mark. Why not? So yeah, I think that's a really great idea. That's one of my favorite things about Rahkshi is just kind of the general silhouette of Rahkshi. They're so badass. This beautiful kind of hunched reptilian, almost sort of like dinosaur-like look to them. This very sort of snake-like head with sometimes with tongues, depending on the interpretations of them. These beautiful sort of spiny backs, cool-looking intricate staffs that differ between each Rahkshi, and then cool-looking legs as well, as you know, and just kind of the way they walk, specifically in the movies and stuff, and just the way they attack, the abilities they've got. There's a lot to love about them. So if you can kind of build a mock that takes some of the principles of Rahkshi and applies it into that, whether it's a Rahkshi or not, that could be a cool idea, because, you know, the general silhouette, this beautiful hunched, spined look, is pretty cool, you know? That's what I like so much about this mock, is it's taking notes from the Rahkshi and finding new ways of approaching them, because there's a lot of cool stuff with Rahkshi. Why not let that influence a mock that you might be making? So he spoke about the head design here, but I do really enjoy it. I also like how just behind the head design there is the Speeder Demon mask, or the Black Phantom mask in lime, that is just kind of used to kind of create the like hump or hunch on the sort of spine of this Rahkshi here. Very fitting. Always cool to see masks being used as sort of just different kind of body elements or design elements on a mark, allowing it to just create an interesting shape or add an interesting texture or look to an element on the mark. So it's not actually in any way a head, but it just works as additional padding or armor. It's always cool to see. I think it's well integrated on this mock for sure. I also just love this color scheme of dark bluish gray and lime. You know, lime is a very bold and in-your-face color, and it works well up against this dark bluish gray kind of background here, for lack of a better term. And I don't know, sometimes I kind of stray away from using lime just because it is so in your face, but I think it's nicely complemented here on this mock. So if you are planning on using a bit of lime, maybe partnering it with some grey or some black, it could be very fitting, could work well. I also like the use of the Matanui shoulder pieces in silver here being used on the staff for this Rahkshi here. Like I said a little bit ago, Rahkshi always have their sort of unique staff design. So it's a fun little choice or design element that you can focus on when you're building is, well, how exactly are you going to design a unique staff for your Rahkshi? What sort of pieces could you use? Are you going to go a little bit more custom or use different weird things, or just straight up use the actual Rahkshi staff pieces that came with the sets? Because nothing wrong with that, of course, as well, if you want to do that. But it's a lovely sense of personalization that you can add when you're making your own, which is definitely fun. You can put a little bit of yourself in what you're building, which is always cool. So a lot to love about this Rahkshi that's a strong departure from a Rahkshi, but still has a lot of very similar design elements to it as well. Very cool. This mock here is by Tyrannical Productions, and it's called Rashi the Rahkshi Warrior. So when we look at Rahkshi heads, I kind of said it before, they almost sort of have a bit of a serpent snake-like look to them. And what I like so much about this mock here by Tyrannical Productions is he's kind of leaned into that to some degree. I can kind of see that the kind of more lanky nature of this mock, the fact that it sort of has a much kind of longer torso here and kind of longer limbs, to me that can kind of represent to some degree a snake, at least it kind of being a little bit more elongated and sort of more reptilian in nature almost too. You know, some depictions of sort of like lizard folk or kobolds or different types of dragon-like humanoid characters or lizard-like humanoid characters that you might see in pop culture or fantasy things. They can be a little bit more sort of, longer limbed or kind of have a bit more of an elongated body in that fashion. So I think the choice to do that on this mock is very fitting and works well, especially when partnered with this Rahkshi head here. It's quite fitting, it's quite cool. So it's also something to think about too. What kind of body shape do you want on your mock? And how can that kind of fit in with the Rahkshi aesthetic? Do you want it to be that sort of more hunch, spined-like look from before? Or do you want this Rahkshi head to have a more serpent look to it? Or do you want to do what a bunch of people do and use the Rahkshi head for a more sort of feminine style of a body design there? That is something that people do tend to lean towards with that head design. It's something to consider. But yeah, or even if you're not building a Rahkshi, you know, study the mask that you're planning on using. What sort of feel or atmosphere does it have, and how can the body reflect that in some fashion, you know? Some of the cooler MOCs are the ones where every piece sort of has been placed for a very specific purpose, you know? Things work together in unison, or things complement other things, you know? And so if you can kind of do that, if you can have your Rahkshi head have a specific look and feel, and the rest of the MOC communicate that too, you'll get a cooler result, that's for sure. And this is a nice example of that. So a bit more of a sort of simplistic staff design for this one here. Also stumbled over my words. Also, the staff is an asymmetrical design as well. Not something you typically see with the Rahkshi staff, but I like that he's done that. It's more unique, it's different, and like I said, that's a fun thing that you yourself can personalize, which is really fun. So, love that staff design. But also something I love is, like I said, this one doesn't have that sort of spiky, hunched back design, but it still has the Rahkshi spine, except this time it's kind of placed more on the butt. And it's more of a sort of stinger this time. It kind of reminds me of like a bee or a wasp. Like this is some sort of weapon that it could use in combat or something, especially because it is this Rahkshi warrior, you know. And I like that idea. You know, who says that the spine needs to be the spine of the Rahkshi? Why not move it to another part of the body, whether it's like this, a stinger, or, I don't know, maybe you want to have spines on its thighs. I don't know, whatever. See if it works. But I think that's a fun little addition, and works well here, and is kind of similar to the last MOC we spoke about. It's kind of honoring the original Rahkshi, but taking it in a brand new direction, and really experimenting and trying new things, which I always applaud. I always like seeing people doing that, because that's where the cool big ideas come from. I love it. So awesome stuff. Let's move on to the next MOC here, which is a real beauty, and it's by Jake TP, and it's called Rahkshi of Rahi Control. This is a thing of beauty, this one is. I read the comments below, and it's awesome to see that Mr. Logan W and Jake TP have done their homework, because I wouldn't have known this. Apparently this MOC, according to Logan W in the comments below on Flickr, which you yourself can check out if you want to read these comments here. You can check the links in the description below to go to the Flickr post yourself. But he says, someone did their homework. Nearly every studless magenta part is used in this MOC. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So certainly that's something you yourself could do, is hop over to Bricklink and study all the pieces that come in a specific color. And for some of those more obscure or newer colors, there'll be more limited pieces that come in those colors. And you could do a Bricklink order, getting a whole bunch of them, and then put them in a MOC like this. And I think it's just so beautiful seeing such a beautiful MOC, but also seeing it in magenta, because that's such a lovely color, and a bit more of a newer color as well. And it's not something you typically see on a Bionicle, because to my knowledge, there's not really any magenta pieces that came with any Bionicle sets, unless I'm forgetting something, but I don't think I am. Yeah, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, of course. But it's really beautiful seeing all these pieces used like this, and there's some fantastic part usages here as well. Specifically on the thighs, using these balloon pieces here to form this beautiful thigh shape to the armor. Looks fantastic. And additionally too, you can see it on the upper arms and the feet on this MOC. There's this almost sort of Y-shaped piece. That is a dragon jaw piece from some of the Friends dragon sets. And that thing looks fantastic here. It's just, again, the texture is very similar to all the other magenta pieces on this MOC, which is a deliberate design choice by Mr. Jake TP here. He's really made sure that he ordered all the pieces in magenta that would work well together, and then put them all together in a MOC, and it's done flawlessly. It looks fantastic. But yeah, the dragon jaw pieces, specifically how they are used on the feet here, I think looks fantastic. There's just something sort of beautifully organic, but it also kind of looks like maybe some sort of protective armor that isn't sort of lifelike or organic, and instead is more more of like a kind of combination of organic and technological. Could be a bit of both to some degree here. I don't know, it's just got a lovely look to it, and it's just a nice piece use, seeing that part being used so well in multiple places on this MOC. Something else that I love too is, again, this is a bit of a departure from your typical Rahkshi. I think typically Rahkshi kind of have this look that is a lot more sleek and organic, whereas this MOC here, it's more sort of curved and rounded, which is still kind of in the same line as your typical Rahkshi, but there's a slight departure from it that really sets it apart. So it still fits in with all your other kinds of Rahkshi, but it's kind of owning its own space, which is beautiful to see. I love that. specifically too, like the custom head design on this Rahkshi here. He's got little chubby cheeks. He's like a little baby. It's awesome. Awesome to see, especially using minifigure helmets like that too. That's just beautiful. And a fantastic weapon design here with this interesting, weird kind of red thing going across it. I don't know what the heck that is, but it looks cool. You know? It's very, very cool. So there's a lot to love about this MOC, whether it's from just beautiful focus on textures, using a beautiful color, and using pieces in clever ways too. There's, yes, certainly a lot to love about this MOC. It's a very beautiful take on a Rahkshi. Let's now move on to a MOC by the Mug Bearer, my good boy, the Mug Bearer, and this one is called Rahkshi. So I think this is a MOC from the official Bionicle story, I think. Let me read the description that Mug Bearer has said here on Flickr. This is a quote, well, the thing that he's said here begins with a quote from the Shadowed One, the leader of the Dark Hunters in the Bionicle storyline. And the quote says, "He is extremely ambitious and has more than once ignored his mission objectives in the interests of his own profit. The last time this happened, I had Vizok show him how easily armor can be shattered when you know how." Oh, very ominous. Very cool, too. So the description continues by saying, "This is Rahkshi, a prodigal son to the very Makuta Pterodax. Once upon a time, Makuta decided to experiment with the mysterious mutagen known as Cal and dipped a krater of his own making into it. The resulting creature proved to be too intelligent, and with ambitions worth of his heritage, so soon after Rahkshi received himself a heavily modified Rahkshi-like exoskeleton. He left the home shores of Destral," I assume that's the name of the place. "He left the home shores of Destral towards the new beginnings as the Dark Hunter." Fantastic. That's actually really cool. If that is a canon character, I knew nothing about them. That's actually really awesome. That's a great concept for Bionicle there. Not surprised by it either. Bionicle always came up with some cool concepts for characters. Stumbling over my words. I had a cookie before I recorded. Maybe it's that cookie speaking. It's like, why'd you eat me before you recorded? Chocolate doesn't help vocal cords before recording. You know this, Ben. Anyway, so this is a really cool MOC. It's kind of, yeah, like the description said, sort of part Rahkshi, part a few other different things, a kind of mutant hybrid with cool exoskeleton-like power armor or something. It's a crazy mix of all sorts of cool things, and that's badass. That's badass. My favorite thing about this MOC is the kind of Rahkshi-like spine and head design on this MOC, because it looks, it very much evokes a sense of being Rahkshi-like, but it's built with system pieces, and that's fantastic. I love me my system, and I love seeing Bionicle system hybrids like this, because it's just beautiful. This Rahkshi head design looks a little bit more like the ones you see in the Mask of Light movie, rather, not the Mask of Life. That is a different Bionicle mask. It's just so unique. It's so cool. It's a lot more sort of snake-like and serpent-like I kind of spoke before, and again, it's just always cool to see different takes on how to build a Rahkshi head or build a Rahkshi spine, you know, using different sword pieces or different Bionicle claw pieces to make the spine on this Rahkshi's back here is beautiful. Is truly beautiful. So I love seeing different takes on that, and I think this one is very effective. And if you've got similar system pieces like this with different sort of curved tiles and different cheese slopes and things, you yourself could achieve a design like this. Get a few clips and things, and you can kind of achieve that curvature to it as well. It's a beautiful thing. It's inspiring me even. Maybe I might build a system Rahkshi. Ooh, okay. Well, I'll report back on that one. Anyway, that's very cool. I also like the tail design on this MOC here. Originally, I thought it was some of those system hinge pieces. They're basically a 1x2 brick, and then they've got those kind of click ratchet hinges that connect them together. Some of them came on some Exoforce sets. A lot of them came in some sort of older sets. They're not as common these days because instead they kind of just use mixel joints these days, which when I zoomed in on the image, I realized those are mixel joints, which, you know, is always a great way to make a kind of tail design like this. You've got to love your mixel joints. A great piece. But you could also use those pieces I was describing before to make a tail design. Why not? But the added bonus of using these mixel joints is, like we see on this MOC here, they kind of start off more thin and then actually branch out into becoming a little bit more thicker. And you know what? I can't tell because there's only one picture of this on Flickr. My chair is squeaking. I'm sorry if you can hear that. I thought what happened, chair? I replaced you and now you're betraying me like my old chair. Anyway, sorry. I thought this was a tail, but the more I look at this one image here, and yeah, like I said, sorry, there's only one image that I could find of this mock. If there's more, I missed it. I apologize. But this might not actually be a tail. This might be coming out of the spine there. It kind of could be like a sick ponytail with spikes and spines on it. That's cool. That's really cool. I'm sure Mugbearer will clear that up for me. I appreciate it if you do, good sir. Either way, though, that's sick. That's a great idea. Another great way of approaching a Rahkshi. What if the spine actually just flowed into a tail? Cool. That's awesome. Another thing I love on this mock too is the wing design. Simply just using ball joints, Hero Factory bone pieces like that, and some repeated weapon elements. You get a pretty cool looking wing design there. You more or less can kind of reverse engineer that just from studying the image there. It's really just a series of different Hero Factory bones, like I said. You could easily kind of maybe even branch out and add a few more sections to that so you have more than the 3 kind of prongs to the wing there. That's a beautiful design. It's a really beautiful design. Yeah, this is a really cool mock. Dude, I kind of, like, I'd written my notes on this and I had things to talk about, but the more I stare at it, the more I'm noticing cool stuff. Good job, Mugbearer. Good job. Cool character, cool concepts. Hey, this next mock is by The Royal Brick and it's called Nihrahk, Rahkshi of Strength. So I'm going to read the description on this mock too because I like what he said here. He said, here's Nihrahk, Rahkshi of Strength. Thanks, man. No, he then went on to say, I went for a bone and muscle color scheme on this one. And I kind of hadn't picked it up. Like, I picked this mock because I thought the color scheme was cool. But I love the fact that the color scheme was deliberately picked. And the reason for that is the Rahkshi of Strength. And he, like he said, he's going for that kind of bone and muscle thing. And so it's kind of the idea of like, well, if strength has a like physical representation, it's probably bones and muscles, right? Because muscles, strength kind of go hand in hand. And what color are they? Yeah, kind of white and red, or kind of that kind of muscly color, and I think this is the perfect color for that. So I love the idea that the color scheme kind of directly affects the element or ability that this mock has. It's just very fitting, you know? Of course, you kind of see that already with like Tower of Fire being red and stuff, but if you're going for a more obscure element, can you then relate the color scheme back to that? Or an obscure power? I wouldn't say strength is necessarily an element here, but it is the power that a Rahkshi might have, because Rahkshi did have some weird, unique powers there, and there's been all sorts of different interpretations of all those different powers built by different AFOLs and fans of LEGO all around the world, so do some studying, check old Buddy Biosector, and you can read up on all the different powers they had. They were pretty cool. But I think it's very fitting, having a color scheme that directly affects the abilities that it has. That's awesome. I love, too, that this mock uses a Mutter torso for its torso here. It's always rare to see a Mutter torso being used, but never forget, Mutter torsos are super helpful and super cool. So it's 2020. It's time for a bit more love with Mutter torsos, guys. I definitely recommend playing around with some if you've got them, because like we see here, it fits pretty well. The Rahkshi spine fits nicely onto it, and it just works. The weapon on this Rahkshi's staff from Prydak, the Baraki, has that white and red marbled texture to it. It's very nice to see. And I imagine that might have also helped informing the color scheme too. It's always nice when a certain piece on a mock kind of was the stimulus for building it, kind of gave you the inspiration or gave you the idea to making a choice when you're building, whether that choice was the specific color scheme or, I don't know, it just gave you some ideas, because there's a lot of power in pieces, you know? A good mask can help inspire you to build something cool, or some new colors or some new pieces might get those juices flowing. So have a look at your collection, have a look through your pieces, and maybe one of those cool pieces will help inform something. Who knows? So pretty cool Rahkshi mock. Let's move on to the last one. This is by our buddy Joxon, and it's called Punkrahk Sergei. So this was made for a Secret Santa build-off gift to... it was made by Joxon and built for his mate Sergei Rachmaninoff. And it is a reimagining of his self-mock too, which is pretty cool. So I love this concept for a Rahkshi. The idea that Rahkshi kind of has the word rock in it, and so you've made like a cool punk rock guy, rock star kind of character. That's hilarious. Great pun. Very fitting. And very cool. This custom brick-built Rahkshi head here that has the Ninjago snake element coming out of it as a tongue is awesome. That's a great part use. And the idea too of moving the Rahkshi spine onto the head so that it's kind of this mohawk design is fantastic. That's super cool. And I love too this Kitar weapon that he's got here as well. That's awesome. And the color scheme, the choices here. The this interesting piece that's the claws on his hand and the mohawk on his head. I don't know the name of that color. It's kind of, it looks like it can glow in the dark, but it doesn't. It's kind of like a, is that, I suppose it's spring green, isn't it? Is that spring green? Or is that a shade off of spring green? I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know. I'm sure someone will correct me there, but still, that coupled with blue, coupled with some black and a few other colours here and there, really fitting kind of punk rock kind of colour scheme here. It works very well. And something else that works well too, there is a shoelace that is the kind of strap on his guitar there. And I saw a little note here on Flickr, someone was saying like, oh, is that shoelace there? Is that officially Lego? And Joxon said, no, it's just a shoelace. But hey, nothing wrong with doing that. Nothing wrong if you want to give a strap to your guitar for your Bionicle and you just want to use a shoelace. Yeah, why not? You know, yeah, sure. You could use some official, you know, string element or something, or you could use your shoelace. Why not? Who cares? There ain't no police coming to you to tell you got to fix that or something. No, you could just put a shoelace on the MOC. Why not? It works. It works well. Also, the shoes on this MOC too. That's awesome. I love it. There's a lot to love about this MOC. Got a beautiful punk rock aesthetic to it. And again, it's taking the concept of Rahkshi and finding new ways of reimagining them. And I love that. I love that a lot. Also a great gift for Sergei too. That's awesome. So that's been a whole bunch of different Rahkshi in this Rahkshi episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series today. The next episode is a fan-submitted MOCs episode, but of course, if you want to submit your own MOCs to the show, you can do so through the email you're seeing on your screen at the moment. Submitted MOCs go into any episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, but the next episode I'll put at least 10 submissions in that episode there, so you can get excited about that as well. All you got to do for submitting a MOC is put as many or as few pictures as you want in the email. Submit it to the email you currently see on the screen. You can put a description in there as well if you want. If not, that's okay too. And one day it'll appear on the show, but do bear in mind I've got a lot of submissions to work through, so your patience is key. Additionally, you can check the links below to see my social media as well. My social media there, you can see all sorts of stuff that I'll post, including maybe that system-built Rahkshi I was thinking about, because, man, that actually sounds really fun. I kind of want to build that. I'll report back to you on that one, I promise, because that actually sounds cool. I don't want to say I'm going to build it and then not. I think I will. That's awesome. So you can look forward to seeing that on my social media there, my Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, all that sort of stuff. You can see it in the description below. And also you can see in the description below links to the MOCs you saw in today's episode. Be sure to check those out and leave a little bit of love on the original posts and let those builders know your thoughts on what they've made. That's it for today's episode though, guys. Thank you very much for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Happy building. Bye for now.